Number 10. The Pike County Massacre. On the night of April 21st, 2016, the Roden family was just about wiped out. 8 people belonging to the Roden family were shot and killed in 4 different houses throughout Pike County in Ohio. All 8 of the victims were killed, 7 of them execution style. The whole bloodline was nearly eradicated in one coordinated attack. This case was one of the worst massacres in Ohio history, and investigators were hot on the case. They believed the murders were premeditated and that whoever committed the awful killings had known the Roden family intimately. 4 days after the murders, the police discovered 2 illegal operations at the scenes of the crimes. The Roden family had been growing marijuana plants, and they were operating an underground cockfighting ring. The evidence led investigators to assume the killings were criminally motivated, perhaps by a rival crime family. As police would soon discover, their assumptions were correct. Between April 2016 and November 2018, the most extensive investigation in Ohio history unfolded. The police were hot on the trail of the killers. Then, 4 members of the Wagner family were finally arrested in both Ohio and Kentucky. Edward Wagner admitted to being the ringleader and pleaded guilty to all 8 murders. He was given 8 consecutive life sentences, but it wasn't anything to do with crime. It was all because of a custody dispute between Edward Wagner and Hannah Roden. And believe it or not, the trial is still going on. George Wagner will go to trial in August 2022. He's Edward's older brother. Angela Wagner, the family's mother, is also waiting to be sentenced for her role in the killings. Number 9. Burning the disabled. A mother and daughter duo were arrested after purposely burning a disabled woman. It happened back in May 2020. Lauren Victoria Alvarez, 19 years old, and her mother, Tamara Ray Buck, were arrested following allegations that they had repeatedly burned the disabled woman with a marijuana pipe, repeatedly and deliberately. This crime all went down at Tamara's house, who was dating the disabled woman's father at the time of the incident. The victim had known the family for many years. She had no serious problems with them before, and yet something went seriously wrong on this day. If you're wondering what kind of disability the victim has, she's physically disabled and can't walk. In allegations against Lauren and her mother, she says both women forced her into bed, stood over her and smoked marijuana out of a metal pipe. They pressed the pipe against her bare chest, giving her severe burns. Lauren, Tamara, and their friend all took turns burning her. There was no real motive behind the burning. It looks like the mother and daughter got a little too high and thought it would be fun to pick on someone who couldn't defend themselves. Although most experts agree smoking pot doesn't usually result in violent behavior. They weren't arrested but released the same day. Number 8. Texas bank robbers. In southeastern Texas, a family of bank robbers got caught. The father and his 2 adult children performed a pair of bank robberies in Texas and a string of robberies in Portland and Oregon. Ronald Catt was the father, joined in this crime spree by his son Hayden and daughter Abigail. This is one of those stories many people might sympathize with. After Ronald's wife's death, he faced financial difficulties. Things were tough on his kids, and to bolster the family income, he resorted to a life of robbing banks. And who better to help him than his very own family? Starting in 2000, Ronald began robbing banks by himself. He got away with 5 bank robberies in Portland. He robbed one bank every year, netting about $5,000 or $10,000 for each job. But then, in 2010, his kids were finally old enough to carry their weight. In 2012, they moved to Texas as a family of bank robbers. They robbed the Comerica Bank in Harris County on August 9th, with the men going inside armed with airsoft guns, while Abigail waited outside in the getaway vehicle. They then committed another robbery at the First Community Credit Union on November the 9th. They ended up earning themselves $170,000 from the 2 robberies. Unfortunately for the family, they made one huge error. The police could identify the orange safety vests they wore during the robbery. They then linked the vests to the Home Depot. The investigators clearly saw the siblings purchasing the safety vest when they checked security footage. As a result, Hayden was given 10 years, his sister 5, even though they committed the same crime and were found guilty of the same thing. Ronald was given 24 years. Abigail was given parole in September 2015 after spending less than 3 years locked up. However, she was thrown back in jail less than a year later because of parole violations. Number 7. The Kelly family. For those who don't know, the Kelly family was the sickest bunch of serial killers of the 19th century. They were a family of monsters, actual psychopaths like out of a Rob Zombie movie. The Kelly family operated near a small Kansas town for just 1 year in 1887. In Oak City, William Kelly, his wife Kate, their son Bill and daughter Kit murdered 11 people between August and December. We don't know too much about the history of the Kelly family. Historians believe they moved from Pennsylvania to Kansas in 1869. Anything before that is off the record. They first got into the cattle business, but later opened a tavern in no man's land about 25 miles, 40 kilometers from the city of Beaver. They were illiterate and poor, but worked hard, so nobody suspected anything was wrong with them. But it was later that fateful year when the locals got suspicious. Within just a few months, the disappearances were adding up, and everyone who disappeared did so while going down the lonely road to the Kelly Tavern. The Kelly family were taking wealthy travelers off the road, stealing their stuff, and then dumping them in a hidden cellar beneath the house after murdering them, usually with an axe. By the time they were caught, they were already fleeing. They had abandoned the town with all the money they earned by robbing people. However, they didn't get too far. A posse of men was organized. They flew after them on their horses, and the whole family was wiped out. Kate snapped her neck, falling from her house, and the other 3 were hanged right there on the nearest tree. Number 6. Father-daughter crime. A father and his daughter were arrested back in September 2015 for robbing a bank in Grandview, Texas. The father, 41-year-old Michael Bailey, walked into the bank at around noon on a Thursday afternoon, while his 19-year-old daughter Megan stayed in the car. They got away with an undisclosed amount of money, then fled the scene. But these guys weren't experienced bank robbers, and they didn't get very far. The cops caught up to them immediately, resulting in an insanely high-speed chase through 2 local counties. At one point, Michael reached speeds of up to 150 miles per hour, while his daughter hung on for dear life in the passenger seat. Of course, you can't just get away from the cops like you're Fast and Furious, not in the middle of nowhere in Texas. They crashed into a ditch, were arrested, and charged with aggravated robbery. Number 5. TikTok mom and daughter killers. A moderately famous social media influencer from the UK who made a satirical video on TikTok about killing somebody was actually just charged with murder. Not only her, but also her mother. The social media influencer is Mahek Bukhara, 22 years old. Her mother is Ansreen, who appeared in plenty of Mahek's uploads. According to the police, the duo and a third woman named Natasha chased down 2 of their male friends and drove them off the road, killing both young men. It happened in the early hours of February 11, 2022. Nobody knows what happened inside the car carrying those 3 women, except for them. But what the police know is that, for whatever reason, their vehicle pushed the vehicle carrying Saqib and Mohammed. Maybe the influencer and her mother thought they were being funny by messing around in the car at high speed. Whatever the case, they are directly responsible for the deaths of these 2 men. They've been arrested and charged with murder, regardless of Mahek living her best life with over 120,000 followers. Number 4. Family killers. William Porter and his daughter Selena Porter are facing some pretty severe charges regarding the death of their neighbor back in 2018. William is looking at second-degree murder, while Selena is looking at an accessory after the fact to murder. It all came after David Brady's body was discovered off the side of a rural road in Lakeland, Florida. According to the local deputies, the trouble started when Williams and Brady drank some beer together. Brady allegedly made an inappropriate comment about Williams' daughter. The two got into a serious argument. Brady physically attacked William and even drew a gun. Then, according to what William said, he took the gun away from Brady and shot him in the chest. This is one of those tricky things for the police to sort out. Considering Brady is dead and can't exactly tell his side of the story, there's no way to know what happened except by looking at the evidence. The biggest issue for the police is that William and his daughter loaded the dead man's body into the truck, drove him 40 miles, 64 kilometers away, and then dumped him on the side of the road. If it had been self-defense, the duo probably wouldn't have needed to get rid of the body. Number 3. Bringing the baby. A mother and daughter duo, Debbie and Gloria Montoya, were accused in 2022 of scavenging for goods at the house of a dead guy. In March, the pair were arrested near Albuquerque for scrounging around in a place they didn't belong. When the police asked what the women were doing there, they said they had just been driving by and noticed there were no locks on the door, so they poked around. But here's the awful thing. When the deputies searched their blue Ford Focus parked out of the house, they discovered a 9-month-old baby hiding inside. The baby was practically rolling around in filth. There were meth pipes in the car, throwing knives, nunchucks, and brass knuckles. These women were loaded up like meth-addicted ninjas and were out breaking into empty houses looking for scraps. They weren't the worst women to ever walk the planet, but they were rooting around in dead people's houses looking for valuables with an infant rolling around on top of piles of throwing knives. The baby was taken away, and both women were hauled off to jail. Number 2. Arbor Killers. On February 23, 2020, Travis McMichael and his father, Gregory McMichael, armed themselves to the teeth and chased down a man named Ahmaud Arbery. The father and son pair were assisted by a third man named William Bryan, who was their neighbor. The thing was that these 3 guys saw Ahmaud jogging down the street in the neighborhood of Satilla Shores in Glynn County, Georgia. With absolutely no proof and no reasonable cause for concern, they assumed the 25-year-old black man was running because he had just committed a crime. But he was just trying to get some exercise. What happened next was a family hate crime. With the help of their neighbor, father and son followed Ahmaud for several minutes. They worked themselves into such a frenzy that they got out of their truck, beat him with a shotgun, and blasted him 3 times. The neighbor recorded the entire thing on his phone, making it a pretty quick case to deal with for the authorities. At least, it should have been. Instead, the Glynn County Police Department tried to sweep the incident under the rug. It wasn't until the video of the killing leaked and went viral that any arrests were made. It went viral on May 5th, 2020. The McMichaels were arrested 2 days later, and 2 weeks after that, they were charged with felony murder. Both father and son got life in prison, plus 20 years. Number 1. Cold case murders. A SWAT team in Los Angeles County descended on a residence at 4:30 a.m. in September 2021. They took into custody Anthony Velasquez and his father Manuel Velasquez. Police believe the father and son duo are connected to 3 separate murders going back to 2014. The arrests only came after the police offered an $80,000 reward for anyone who could provide pertinent information on the case. An unidentified source took the chance to make themselves a whole heap of money and ratted the father and son out. It turned out Anthony shot Jesse Valos to death in February 2014. But he also shot Eduardo Robles in July 2015 after getting into an argument in the driveway of a residence. And finally, Amanda Lopez, only 27 years old, was shot to death in April 2018 in the middle of the night. She was killed while asleep in her tent near a homeless encampment. Anthony Vasquez turned out to be a kind of low-key serial killer, with his father helping him in all 3 cases. Unfortunately, he was there to support his murdering child, or at least behind the wheel of the getaway car. And to be honest, it's a good thing they got caught when they did. The first 2 killings may have been over some arguments, but the third one, the slaying of the innocent homeless woman, was clearly a random act of violence. If these 2 hadn't been locked up, who knows how many more people they would have tried to prey on.
9. Vincenzo Zerlo. 36-year-old Vincenzo Zerlo started going to a woman named Alcalera Jimenez de Rodriguez for Botox in 2020 after meeting the Doral, Florida resident through a friend. A few months into his treatments, he asked her about the possibility of getting a rhinoplasty, commonly known as a nose job. She agreed to do it for just $2,000, well below the going rate for the procedure in the US. The self-proclaimed practitioner sent Zerlo home from the operation with prescriptions from a doctor he'd never heard of, which immediately threw up red flags. Over the following months, he realized that the surgery that was meant to make him look better had left him disfigured. Jimenez de Rodriguez agreed to fix the problem, but the second operation only left him even more disfigured and in pain. Zerlo went to the police, and they sent an undercover investigator to the surgical center, where he'd gotten the botched procedure done. They decided that there was enough evidence to charge Jimenez de Rodriguez, who was in the middle of yet another unlicensed operation when they showed up to arrest her. Zerlo told NBC Miami that Jimenez de Rodriguez ruined his life. Police charged her with practicing medicine without a license and resisting arrest. What do you think her punishment should be? 8. Grant Robichaud and Carissa Riley. Grant Robichaud originally became famous as a reality TV star and was also a respected surgeon based in California. But he made headlines for vastly different reasons in 2018, when 7 women accused him of drugging and sexually assaulting them. Police arrested Robichaud on a slew of 16 charges. They also charged his girlfriend, Carissa Riley, over allegations that she helped him lure women to drug and assault them. The case has dragged on for several years. Last year, prosecutors dropped rape charges against both Robichaud and Riley. They still face charges of kidnapping to commit a sexual offense, assault with intent to commit a sexual offense, and drug-related crimes. One of the couple's alleged victims said in court last year that she was exhausted by how painfully slow the case is taking to unfold in court. It got caught in the middle of a political battle between the former and current Orange County District Attorney. The current DA tried getting the charges dismissed entirely before they went to the State Attorney General's office. Along the way, at least 3 victims have distanced themselves from the case after feeling like the Orange County prosecutors had dragged them through the mud. To make matters worse, the judge that was overseeing the case recused himself last year. Robichaud and Riley have both pleaded not guilty, claiming that the sex was consensual. For now, the future of the case remains uncertain. This is another case of he said, she said that is always difficult to resolve. 7. Anastasia Balinskaya. Anastasia Balinskaya was a Russian reality star from Belarus, whose career was jeopardized after a botched rhinoplasty which caused her nose to rot from the inside out. A few years after the procedure, she opened up to 159,000 Instagram followers about her suffering. By then, Anastasia's nose had deteriorated so badly that doctors said she had just weeks to save it before it decayed completely. The young woman had already spent copious amounts of time and money trying to fix her face to no avail, and she couldn't afford any more treatments. In a last-minute race against the clock, Anastasia pleaded with her fans for donations to help her get her nose fixed. According to her last Instagram update, posted on August 22nd of last year, doctors scheduled her to receive her 4th rhinoplasty to repair all damage that previous procedures had done to her nose. She asked fans to pray for her. Since then, it appears as though her TikTok account no longer exists, and it's unclear why she hasn't posted on Instagram in nearly 9 months. Hopefully, the operation went okay. Why do you think her posts went silent? 6. Dr. Elmer Rafi. U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York recently announced the arrest of 56-year-old Brooklyn-based orthopedic surgeon Dr. Elmer Rafi for healthcare fraud. Rafi and several other healthcare providers allegedly submitted false Medicare claims for kickbacks from telemedicine companies, amounting to millions of dollars in ill-gotten funds. Simply put, Prosecutors accused Dr. Rafi of writing prescriptions and submitting order forms for medically unnecessary equipment. They added providing consultations to beneficiaries simply for financial bonuses. He had brief phone conversations with these supposed beneficiaries and did not examine them in person, and received between $25 and $30 for each consultation. Rafi and others involved in the case submitted claims to the tune of $10 million, and Medicare reportedly paid out an estimated $4 million. In a statement, Special Agent in Charge, Scott J. Lampert, described Dr. Rafi as being more motivated by personal gain than his duty to provide quality care to his patients. They also accused the disgraced medical professional of pilfering exorbitant amounts of money from a program that, in Special Agent Lampert's words, millions of people rely on for their health services. If convicted, Rafi could face up to 10 years behind bars. 5. Carissa Raj Paul. In 2019, 26-year-old aspiring social media star Carissa Raj Paul began a series of butt lift procedures at the Encino, California home of mother-daughter duo Libby Adam and Alicia Galaz. The pair allegedly claimed to be specialists who were qualified to administer rear-end enhancing shots. But they weren't qualified, and they injected Raj Paul with cosmetic substances that were mixed with dangerous chemicals. Carissa died after her third session. The tragedy sparked an investigation, leading police to charge Adam and Galaz with first-degree murder and 3 felony counts, each of practicing medicine without a license. Authorities believe that there may be more victims beside Raj Paul, including several the pair disfigured and at least one other who may have died. The LAPD told Rolling Stone that nearly 100 individuals had come forward, claiming Adam and Galaz had injured them. The duo appeared in court for the first time earlier this year, but neither defendant entered a plea. Adam's lawyer, J. Michael Flanagan, told Rolling Stone that his team wanted to review the discovery paperwork before deciding on their next move, and that they're considering options that won't be available to them if they enter a plea on Adam's behalf. Both of the women's lawyers are saying very little as the cases work their way through the Los Angeles County court system. Hopefully, justice will be served. 4. Dr. Jeffrey Kim. 18-year-old Emmeline Nguyen went into cardiac arrest in 2019 after receiving anesthesia for breast augmentation in Glenwood Village, Colorado. She was in a coma for 14 months and then she died. The Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office launched a lengthy criminal investigation and ultimately determined that the plastic surgeon who was treating Emmeline, Dr. Jeffrey Kim, was responsible for the young woman's death. Over 2 years and dozens of interviews and search warrants later, police finally issued an arrest warrant. Dr. Kim turned himself in earlier this year. He faces felony charges of first-degree aggravated assault, reckless manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide. He also faces a wrongful death lawsuit that Emmeline's family has filed against him. The lawsuit paperwork alleges that Dr. Kim left the teen unobserved in the operating room for several minutes after doctors administered anesthesia. When staff members returned to the room, Emmeline's lips and face were blue, according to the complaint. But staff members failed to contact emergency services or take her to the hospital for 5 hours. Dr. Kim posted a $5,000 bond, and they released him after he turned himself in. Rex Meeker, who worked at Colorado Aesthetic and Plastic Surgery as a nurse anesthetist, faces a manslaughter charge for their alleged role in Emmeline's death. At the time of the announcement, the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office clarified that the investigation was ongoing and that they'd released no further information for the time being. 3. Kuana Weaver. Last year, 38-year-old Long Beach, California resident Kuana Weaver and her friend Delicia Smith went to Mexico together to get tummy tucks. They expected to experience a relatively simple 4-hour procedure, but Kuana died on the operating table. Smith spent 2 weeks in the hospital, fighting for her life, and was lucky to survive. Kuana's grief-stricken family did some digging and learned that the individual who performed the tummy tucks was not a licensed plastic surgeon. They also found out that another woman had fallen gravely ill at the same clinic where Kuana and Delicia had gone, and on the same day. Friends rushed the third victim to the emergency room with septic shock, and she now suffers from kidney failure. An autopsy determined that Kuana died from blood clotting issues and a heart attack. The clinic never pronounced her dead or informed the American embassy of Kuana's passing. As soon as the case started gaining attention, the clinic deleted its webpage. Kuana's mother is determined not to let the phony practitioners get away with their actions. Since the tragedy, she's devoted her time and energy to raising awareness about the dangers associated with medical tourism, which is becoming increasingly popular among Americans seeking low-cost alternatives to costly procedures in the US. The FBI is investigating the clinic, and it's hopefully only a matter of time before it's forced to answer for its alleged wrongdoings. 2. James Ryan. In one of the most bizarre medical abuse cases to make headlines so far this year, police accused a 48-year-old Maryland-based oral surgeon named James Ryan of feeding addictive drugs to his aspiring model girlfriend, leading to her death. 25-year-old Sarah Harris was Ryan's employee and patient, who went to his office to get her wisdom teeth removed before things took a romantic turn between the pair. The young woman spiraled into addiction shortly after moving in with her older lover, who allegedly routinely supplied her with addictive drugs, including ketamine, Neurontin, and Propofol, the infamous anesthetic that killed Michael Jackson. Ryan administered the drugs through an IV and by giving injections. Court documents allege that he also gave Harris drugs while she slept. 7 months after shacking up with the dentist, she accidentally overdosed and died. An autopsy found large amounts of ketamine and Valium in her system. Harris's older sister, Rachel, got into the deceased young woman's phone and found incriminating texts between her and Ryan. Rachel compiled the texts into a binder and handed the evidence over to the Montgomery County Police Department. A complaint from detectives reveals the couple had straightforward discussions about Harris's drug use and that she often asked Ryan to get specific drugs for her. It was clear, based on the conversations, that the dentist regularly facilitated his girlfriend's substance abuse. The documents also claim that Ryan gained the drugs and equipment illegally at his practice. One text from Harris to Ryan stated, "I feel so disoriented." In response, Ryan told her she was experiencing the combined effects of 2 different drugs. He asked Harris if she was having trouble walking, and she said no, that she simply felt like she was floating. Prosecutors are accusing Ryan of supplying his girlfriend with an endless drug stash and willingly feeding her addiction as it worsened. Throughout this time, Harris's family grew increasingly concerned about her drug use. They noticed she was wearing long-sleeve shirts to gatherings, even when it was hot out, showing that she may have been concealing needle marks. Her loved ones also claimed that they visited Harris at home one time and found her in an altered state. When they forced her to roll her sleeves up, they found what looked like needle marks and bruises in various stages of healing, surefire evidence of prolonged use. Ryan woke up one day and found his girlfriend unresponsive. He dialed 911, but by the time emergency responders arrived, it was too late to save her. Police charged him with second-degree depraved heart murder, reckless endangerment, and several other crimes, and are accusing him not of deliberately killing Harris, but of being indifferent enough to her well-being to knowingly cause her death. 1. Gou Lei. In 2020, a famous Chinese singer and actress named Gou Lei mysteriously vanished from the limelight without explanation. Her 5 million social media followers soon learned that she was suffering from the ill effects of a botched nose job, which caused the tissue in the tip of her nose to die. Liu eventually addressed her fans in a social media post, explaining that doctors had hospitalized her for 2 months and sharing photos revealing her blackened nose. The damage was extensive and she needed more surgeries, but she needed to wait at least a year for the corrective work she'd had done to heal before continuing along her journey. In the meantime, Liu lost over $61,000 in wages because she couldn't work. Authorities had already disciplined the clinic that performed the operation several times before Miss Gou's ordeal. Had she known about this, she might not have gone there. Her career-damaging debacle helped to raise awareness about the widespread problem of botched plastic surgery, with many of the starlet's fans demanding heightened accountability and stricter industry regulations. 9. The Wrong House. In January 2014, an MMA fighter single-handedly warded off 4 intruders at 2 a.m. on New Year's Day. MMA fighter Joe Torres, who was in New Mexico, faces charges for brutally killing one, injuring another, and warding off 2 more intruders. Torres beat 25-year-old Sal Garces to death. Police later found Garces lying near his trailer. Along with Garces were his 19-year-old brother, Raymond Garces, 20-year-old Nathan Avalos, and 22-year-old Leonard Calvillo. The foursome successfully broke into the 27-year-old MMA fighter's house while he was enjoying his day off with his fiancée and young son. Torres heard a bang just outside the main door, and he sprang into action. Almost immediately, a fight broke out, killing Garces, and Avalos had to be rushed to the nearest hospital for his severe facial injuries. The other 2 members of the gang fled the scene, fearing for their lives. Investigators revealed that Calvillo and his brothers had earlier threatened Torres that they would come to kill him. The intruders were armed with a crude shank and a knife when they broke into the house. Police arrested Leonard and Raymond and charged them with several felonies. Authorities have held the pair on a $10,000 secured bond at a detention center. Torres' attorney stated that his client only acted in self-defense and the court should pardon him. Friends, family, and fans started a Facebook page to support Torres. They hoped it would help the court acquit him of all charges. In July 2014, prosecutors dropped the charges against Torres and he walked out as a free man. 8. Robbery in bar gone wrong. In August 2019, a man walked into a bar and announced his arrival, saying, "This is a robbery." The robber then went around and demanded patrons for their valuables. Most of the patrons in the bar, fearing for their lives, ducked under their tables to seek cover. Everyone did as instructed by the armed intruder, except for one man. This man was absolutely fearless and refused to hand over his phone. Instead, he casually lit a cigarette and continued to watch the commotion at the bar. CCTV footage of the incident at Berman's Tavern in St. Louis have captured the unfazed body language of the bold patron. You could tell he just doesn't care about the situation. Dustin Kruger, one bartender, said the man was very adamant and wasn't interested in playing games with the robber. The bar owner, Joe Kimmack, released the footage, which shows Kruger and 4 men present when the robber walked in with a semi-automatic style gun. You can see the unidentified man sipping on his beer and browsing his smartphone, paying no heed to the armed intruder who jabs the gun into the man's ribs. When the robber tried to take his phone away, he snatched it back and placed it on the counter. So, while the robber got away with his share of the loot, he won't forget this encounter for a long time. Police still have not identified the robber or the fearless bar patron. 7. YouTube prank gone wrong. In Nashville, Tennessee, someone brutally shot a man after a YouTube video didn't exactly go as planned. In February 2021, a 20-year-old Timothy Wilkes and his friend were carrying butcher knives to the Urban Air Trampoline and Adventure Park. Then they would perform their stunt in front of a group of unsuspecting people. The Metropolitan Nashville Police Department said they arrived at around 9:20 p.m. to find Wilkes shot by a 23-year-old David Starnes Jr. Starnes confessed he wasn't aware of the robbery being part of the prank and shot Wilkes to defend himself and others who were at risk. The police were unsure if Starnes shot at Wilkes in self-defense, but prosecutors didn't file any charges against him. Similar pranking videos have raked in thousands and thousands of views on YouTube, which drives young content creators to do something extreme. Here's another case where a YouTube prank video went wrong. Police arrested YouTube stars and TikTokers Alex and Alan Stokes and charged them with a felony after attempting to pull off a supposed bank robbery prank. The plan was to walk out of a bank dressed in black overalls, wearing ski masks while carrying a bag full of cash. They'd pretend to hitch an Uber ride and claim that their getaway driver had gone missing. Instead, a bystander called the cops over a supposed carjack scene unfolding on the streets. Police gave the twins a warning and let them go, but just 4 hours later, they tried to pull off the same prank. At the University of California, people sent several emergency calls to the cops again. According to the Orange County District Attorney's Office, the twins could get 4 years in prison if convicted. The boys achieved their goal of posting it on their social media page. The video, titled "Bank Robber Prank Gone Wrong," now listed as private on the channel, received over 1 million views. 6. Thief hits his own partner. A 2018 video of a robbery in Shanghai, China will remind you of the movie Home Alone. The video we're referring to is of a robbery gone entirely wrong, and instead of being discreet, it went viral. CCTV footage shows two robbers with masks over their faces and wearing hoodies attempting to break into a shop through a massive glass door. One man moves forward and aims at the glass door, while the other throws the brick aimlessly. But guess what? The brick slams his partner in the head. He almost instantly falls unconscious to the ground. The second man realizes his mistake and drags his buddy off the scene. The internet erupted after the video surfaced. People online called this heist the world's worst burglary attempt. Twitter users were falling off their chairs laughing while viewing the whole incident. A Twitter user mentioned, Shanghai police released this footage of what might be the two people in the world least qualified to pull off a life of crime. Another one tweeted, world's worst burglar clocks his partner in the head with a brick. The Shanghai police said, if all thieves were like this, we wouldn't have to work overtime. And we couldn't agree more. 5. The Dead Dream. 19-year-old Michael Vincent Loretta thought it was his lucky day when he found his dream car on OfferUp. But little did he know, it would be his last. In November 2021, police from Fairfield, California issued a warning asking residents not to make purchases from online groups because of a recent event of a young man killed in a robbery gone wrong. The Fairfield police received a call from a man at Tyler Street around noon. They found Loretta's bullet-ridden body on the floor when they arrived at the scene. The police confirmed he had died on the scene. Upon investigating, they learned Loretta was supposed to meet someone from OfferUp to buy a car. The next day, the police arrested 24-year-old Kamaria Strange from San Pablo. Police charged her with homicide and booked her into the Solano County Jail. According to the jail documents, they're holding her without bail. Although investigators haven't confirmed the motive of the murder, the family believes that Strange tried to flee with the car and the money during the exchange. Loretta's father, in an interview, said that he, along with his son Michael, were looking for a car together. They agreed on a 2013 BMW 5 Series for $7,000. His heartbroken parents told ABC News it was his dream car, and he'd been working several jobs to save up for it. The victim's mother told the news that Michael had just graduated from Benicia High School and dreamt of becoming a history teacher. The Fairfield Police Department offers safe exchange zones for residents to exchange transactions in a monitored area. The safe exchange zone is an allotted space next to the police station with 2 designated parking spaces and 24-hour surveillance. 4. Man murdered at gas station. Police arrested 3 men from San Bernardino for a 2016 robbery gone wrong that killed a 24-year-old man. Jeffrey Tooley, 38, Dijon Vincent Griffin, 38, and Aaron Vernon Jackson, 41, had made extensive plans to rob an unsuspecting victim at the Buena Park gas station. It was on the 4th of July weekend, and they shot Maher Yusuf dead. Yusuf, who worked at the check cashing business, was unaware that a group of 3 men had slashed the tires of his Dodge Charger. Yusuf, traveling with a friend, drove to the gas station to fix his flat tire. When the friend stepped out to get some supplies, the 3 men jumped in on Yusuf and demanded money at gunpoint. According to the prosecutor, Tooley panicked and shot Yusuf in the head as he tried to get out of the car. The bullet that was shot at point-blank range killed Yusuf immediately. When the 3 men appeared in court, Tooley denied shooting Yusuf. His attorney claimed there wasn't any forensic evidence that linked him to the scene. The attorneys of the other 2 men claimed that their clients only wanted to rob Yusuf and placed the blame entirely on Tooley for his death. What's unusual about this case is that there were 2 juries, one for Tooley and the other for Jackson and Griffin. It was the first time courts had used a dual jury for a single trial in Orange County. The first jury found Tooley guilty of first-degree murder during the attempted robbery. The second jury found Griffin and Jackson guilty of murder while in the commission of an attempted robbery. The court hearing for their sentencing is scheduled for July 8, 2022. 3. The Botched Plot. In January 2022, a man killed a 16-year-old Burger King employee in Milwaukee during a robbery. The authorities were quick to act and arrested 41-year-old Antoine Edwards and his 16-year-old daughter. His daughter was his accomplice and the co-worker of Niesha Harris Brazel, the victim. The plan was simple. The father-daughter duo and the co-worker Harris had the entire plot worked out, but sadly, it backfired. Around 10 p.m., a Chevy Impala pulls into the restaurant's drive-thru and signals for an employee. A young male opens the window and briefly converses with the driver before the car pulls away. Minutes later, the same car pulls up at the window, and this time Harris answers it. When Edwards, the Impala driver, pointed a gun toward her, she backed away from the window and collected all the cash from the cash register while calling out to the other employees. So far, the robbery seems to go according to the plan. Harris would hand the cash over to Edwards and stage a victim situation at the restaurant. However, a third player in the plot messed up the whole attempt. Just as Edwards lowered his gun and tried to drive away, witnesses heard a gunshot and Harris fell limp to the ground. So, who shot Harris? Here's where things got crazy. Edwards didn't shoot Harris. Instead, one of her co-workers, 31-year-old Derek Ellis, actually shot her dead. Authorities suggest that Ellis, who fled the scene after hiding the murder weapon, only acted in self-defense to stop the robbery. However, Ellis got into trouble as he was a felon illegally carrying a weapon at work. Edwards' daughter later confessed that the staged robbery went wrong, leading to the painful loss of her best friend, Harris. Ellis is now facing charges for illegally carrying a weapon by a felon and for homicide by negligent handling of a firearm. 2. Don't shoot, I'm pregnant. In 2014, an 80-year-old man from Southern California, Tom Greer, fought back two home intruders, 26-year-old Andrea Miller and 28-year-old Gus Adams. Although he could fend off the fourth burglary attempt at his house, police asked whether they should charge him with homicide. When Greer walked into his house, he found the pair ransacking his possessions. When he tried to intervene, the couple beat him up and threw him to the ground. As a result, he suffered a broken collarbone with a few more cuts and bruises. It's a wonder how the 80-year-old could muster enough courage and energy to grab his .22 caliber handgun from the bedroom and shoot at the couple who were about to flee. His first shot Adams and then turned to Miller, who tried to run away screaming that she was pregnant. But after all the damage done, it didn't matter to Greer anymore. He shot her twice. By this time, Adams had made his escape. Later, an autopsy conducted on Miller's body revealed that she wasn't pregnant. According to an interview with KNBC, Greer said that the victims were running into an alley. Miller yelled, "Don't shoot me, I'm pregnant, I'm going to have a baby," but he had to do what he did. He later told KNBC that he didn't regret shooting her. Police later found Adams, who thought he'd escaped, and arrested him. The charges included first-degree residential burglary and first-degree residential robbery, the death of his girlfriend, and inflicting elderly abuse and bodily damage. A judge sent him to jail with a bond of $1.25 million. And in 2015, the court sentenced him to 12 years in prison. 1. There's no place like a bed. A 22-year-old man woke up from his sleep to find himself handcuffed and surrounded by police officers. Well, this happens when you get too comfortable in the wrong house. But unfortunately, there were too many things that went wrong in this case. First, the burglar chose the wrong place. It belonged to a police officer. And the second and most important thing is that he forgot the basic rule, not to fall asleep on the job. In March 2021, a thief broke into the house of police officer Gian Presa around 2 a.m. while the officer was asleep. Arthid Kinkunthud, the burglar, was tired of stalking through the streets to make a quick buck. When he finally chose the house he would steal from, sleepiness overwhelmed him. The officer's daughter's bedroom was more than welcoming, for the man was pale with fatigue. He switched on the AC and jumped into bed for a quick nap. The following morning, it surprised the officer to find the AC of the adjacent room on, despite his daughter not being in town. He was shocked to find a stranger comfortably sleeping under the blanket when he looked inside. What happened next was when the backup officers arrived, they taped the man's rude awakening. The shouting from the officer woke the burglar up, and he was looking pretty confused at the cop that was yelling at him. Would you rather fight an MMA fighter or get robbed at knife point? Let me know in the comments. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again soon.